My husband threw the divorce papers at me and declared with a look of a high school science fair winner, "You have 36 hours to pack up and leave. My new girlfriend owns everything here now. You're leaving with nothing." He yelled so loudly that even the neighbor's cat, Bella, stopped hunting sparrows and stared at us from the fence. Our entire elite neighborhood in Long Island got a free show. Dear friends, I want to get to know those who are listening to me right now better. Please write which city or country you are from. It's very important and interesting for me to get to know my audience better. Enjoy the listening. Mrs. Higgins froze at her gate with her pug, looking like an ancient statue. Teenagers on scooters slowed down and pulled out their phones, and the Miller family all peeked out from behind their brand new Mercedes. My dear husband's one-man theater was a huge success. I just smiled and thought, "Oh, Robbie, if only you knew what a surprise awaits your little doll when she tries to step into my house." And before we continue, please write what country you are from. I'm curious to know who is on the air with me right now. Enjoy the listening. Robert Victor Austin stood on the porch of our two-story cottage, savoring his moment of triumph. He puffed out his chest and tilted his chin like Napoleon before the Battle of Waterloo, only in an Adidas tracksuit and with a receding hairline. He threw the divorce papers at me with such a theatrical gesture that I instinctively waited for him to bow and ask for an encore of flowers. 36 hours, Claire, he repeated, savoring every word. Chloe moves in on Saturday. You can take your personal things, but only the essentials. The rest is mine by right of the stronger. I stood on the same porch where 7 years ago we kissed after our wedding and swore eternal love to each other. I remember the photographer asked him to look at me with eyes full of love, and Rob handled that task perfectly. Now, standing before me was a man staging a public execution just so all the neighbors would know that Claire Austin was no longer the mistress of this house. Well, if it's theater he wants, theater he'll get. Mrs. Higgins watched us without blinking. Even her pug, Barnaby, froze with his tongue hanging out. Apparently he too appreciated the drama of the moment. The Millers pretended to be rummaging in their trunk, but I was ready to bet my shoe collection that they were already discussing what they saw in their family group chat. The teenagers on scooters weren't shy at all. They filmed everything on their phones. In our wealthy neighborhood, such a show hadn't happened in a long time, and the audience was grateful for the free entertainment. "Fine, Rob," I nodded as calmly as possible. "Whatever you say, honey." My Olympic calmness clearly threw him off his script. He expected tears, a tantrum, maybe even breaking some dishes. After all, we had that Versace set his mother gave us for the wedding. But I just stood there and smiled, thinking about how I needed to see an esthetician. All this stress was making the wrinkles around my eyes more noticeable. "Good, I'm glad we agree." He quickly returned to his winner persona. "Leave the keys on the hallway table and don't even think about damaging anything out of spite." I walked past him into the house, inhaling the familiar scent of his cologne. Tom Ford, a gift from last Christmas. Back then, I still thought we were a happy family. Entering my house, which he was so generously giving to his fitness fairy. But my dear husband will find out about that spicy legal detail very soon, and the performance will be quite something. 9 years ago, we met at one of those business conferences in downtown Seattle, where everyone puts on smart faces and discusses synergy. I was working as a corporate lawyer then. You know, the kind of person who can talk for hours about the beauties of contract law and find loopholes in agreements. A most fascinating occupation, I assure you. Robert managed an investment portfolio at a major financial firm and knew how to look like he understood where the market was headed. During a coffee break, we found each other among the crowd of people in identical suits, two kindred nerdy souls, capable of discussing interest rates and exchange rates for hours. It was intoxicating. Finally, a man who didn't fall asleep when I started talking about the specifics of corporate law. I saw him as an equal partner, someone with whom I could not only build a relationship, but also discuss quarterly reports over dinner. Pure romance. A year later, we got married. The wedding was the kind people talk about. A restrained ceremony at a country club where half the guests discussed the dollar rate and the other half discussed new tax changes. We spent our honeymoon in Miami, because why overpay for the Maldives when we have our own ocean? I sincerely believed I had found the person with whom I could honestly share not only a bed, but also tax deductions. And now, pay attention, the key moment of this story, which my dear husband either forgot or never really knew. 6 years ago, I bought this house. Even before the wedding, using the inheritance from my grandmother, Ann Peterson. May she rest in peace and eternal gratitude for that financial safety net. My mother, Tamara, a forensic expert, an accountant with 30 years of experience and encyclopedic knowledge of human treasury, insisted on the correct paperwork. Claire, she said then, pouring me my fourth cup of tea of the evening, in my career, I've seen so many divorces that I could write a guidebook to the circles of family hell. You love Robert? Fine, love him all you want, but put the house in your name. Period. I brushed it off then, saying, Mom, why are you being so paranoid? We're modern people, we trust each other. But my mother's paranoia was supported by common sense and basic knowledge of family law. The house was registered in my name before the marriage with inherited money. According to the law, it is my personal property, not subject to division. Robert didn't even read the documents back then. He trusted me as a lawyer. Besides, he was busy choosing wedding rings and arguing with the DJ about the music. Life in Long Island flowed along the smooth tracks of prosperity. Sunday barbecues with discussions of mortgage rates, joint trips to Lake Tahoe with other couples, corporate parties and birthdays. Everyone maintained a facade of a perfect life, even though heaven knows what was happening behind closed doors. Take Mrs. Higgins with her pug, for example, always smiling at everyone she meets, talking about her grandchildren's successes, even though her husband ran off with a massage therapist from a Thai parlor 3 years ago. The Millers bragged at every corner about their straight-A son who got into Harvard, keeping quiet about the fact that the honor student had been picked up by the police twice for fighting and extorting money from classmates. Young families posted photos on Instagram in front of brand new Mercedes, even though their loans were choking them tighter than a noose. Robert and I joined this game too, smiling for the cameras, talking about career successes, and hosting dinners for important clients.
I naively believed that behind our facade there was still something real, that at least we weren't lying to each other. Ha, how wrong I was. The first crack in our domestic bliss appeared in early September. Robert came home 2 hours later than usual, reeking of someone else's perfume. Something sugary sweet with notes of vanilla, clearly not from a men's collection. A smudge of burgundy lipstick graced the collar of his white shirt. I never used that color. I prefer nude shades so as not to distract attention from my professional speeches. Got held up with clients, he yawned, carefully avoiding eye contact. Investors from New York came in, had to entertain them, but you understand, that's the job. Of course I understood. I especially understood that New York investors don't usually leave lipstick marks on collars, but I didn't start a scene, not my style. Instead, I smiled sweetly, kissed my husband on the cheek, noting to myself that even his taste felt like a stranger's, and photographed the evidence while he was washing up in the shower. The shower, by the way, lasted a good 30 minutes. Usually, Rob managed in 5 minutes, saving water and time. Sitting on the bed and looking at the incriminating photo, I remembered my mother's words. Never act on impulse, honey. First, build a file thicker than any criminal case, and only then make your move. My mother is a wise woman. I started building the file. A week later, Robert brought home a membership to an elite fitness club, Olympus. That piece of plastic cost about 1/3 of my monthly salary, but my spouse was beaming as if he'd won the lottery. On the kitchen counters, tubs of protein, mysterious green powders, and bottles of shakes that smelled like either a swamp or last year's grass began to multiply. Vlada says the body is a temple, and a temple must be kept in order, he preached at breakfast, stirring another green sludge in his glass. She's a genius, Claire. She links the state of all bodily systems to financial success. A revolutionary approach. So Vlada was a personal trainer, and as I learned from her Instagram, a coach for creating the best version of yourself. Well, of course, where would we be without coaching these days? Sounds expensive, I remarked, sipping my regular coffee without any revolutionary additives. Quality costs money, Robert brushed me off. She doesn't work with just anyone, only an individual approach for select clients. Vlada, Vlada, Vlada. That name began to echo in our house more often than my own. Vlada said there's a movie, Vlada advised meditating, Vlada thinks we need to wake up at 5 in the morning. I was mentally checking the boxes. A midlife crisis in full swing. Robert had just turned 38. Gray hair was starting to peek through his hair dye. The wrinkles around his eyes were more noticeable. A young trainer with a tight butt was flattering his ego. Well, it happens. He'll get over it and calm down, I thought. The next act of the drama, sudden business trips. Miami for negotiations in October. Right. Chicago for a conference that I couldn't find in any business calendar. Seattle for a meeting with partners who, for some reason, left no trace in corporate correspondence. He would leave as a moody workaholic and return tanned and rested as if from a spa resort. And then one October evening, when Rob was once again delayed in a meeting, I decided to check his corporate card statement. You know, professional habit. I'm a lawyer. I'm used to working with documents. What I saw made me pour myself a glass of cognac from my hidden stash instead of tea. Romantic dinners and restaurants with ocean views, $600 here, $800 there. Spa treatments for 2 at $500 a session. A lingerie boutique, $1,700. How many pairs of underwear can you buy for that kind of money?
wine tastings, yacht trips, helicopter tours. And the grand finale, a mysterious line for VK Consulting with transfers totaling $16,000 over 4 months. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the laptop screen, feeling not a cheated wife waking up inside me, but a professional lawyer. An affair is a common thing, unpleasant but survivable. But siphoning family money through shell companies? That's a felony. And right then I knew exactly what to do. My mother arrived that weekend. We sat in the kitchen, our family headquarters for solving all important issues. I laid out the printouts, chat screenshots I managed to get, photos, and my observations. Tamara studied the documents like a pathologist dissecting a particularly interesting case. You know what I'll tell you? She set down her cup and looked at me over her glasses. Men like your Robert don't just have affairs, they have systemic stupidity. And girls like this Vlada don't have just one sponsor, they have a business model. You think she's seeing several men at once? I'm sure of it. A girl who drives a brand new Land Cruiser while working as a fitness trainer clearly has a diversified income portfolio. We found her social media page, Vlada Krasheninenka, 29 years old, entrepreneur and success mentor. Photos from Bali hugging a coconut, green smoothies against the ocean, quotes from Osho and Paulo Coelho mixed with motivational slogans. A snow-white Land Cruiser in front of elite residential complexes in Malibu, Dubai, Courchevel. Designer dresses and handbags, each costing as much as a down payment on an apartment. Building a business from scratch and helping others unlock their potential, my mother read with expression. Yeah, right. A business for unlocking other people's wallets. Then the most interesting part began. I started matching the geolocations from her posts with the dates of Rob's business trips. Coincidence? I don't think so. Miami in October, there she is on the beach. Chicago, her again. Seattle, our hero again with amber beads and a satisfied face. But the best part awaited me on a fitness trainer review site. Vlada had 5 glowing reviews from grateful clients. One was from Pauline Drostova, a family law attorney with 20 years of experience. Alice Yarborough, owner of a boutique chain. Olivia Michaels, CEO of a pharmaceutical company. Ian Levitt, manager of a private equity fund. And my Robert Austin, a financial analyst. All the reviews were written in the same style. All the clients turned out to be married and wealthy. And all of them had suddenly developed a passion for a healthy lifestyle, specifically under Vlada's guidance. Isn't it a miracle? For 8 weeks, I worked like a federal investigator on high-profile cases. I collected transactions, tracked geolocations, made meeting schedules, and analyzed financial flows. By the end of the 2nd month, I had a dossier that any IRS audit would envy, and a plan of action that would do credit to a chess grandmaster.
And here we are, back to today, when my dear husband staged his performance on the porch. I went up to the bedroom, turned on my laptop, and opened the prepared email. In the To field, 4 addresses: Pauline Drozdova, Alice Yarborough, Olivia Michaels, and Ian Levitt. Subject: information regarding Vlada Krasheninova's services that will interest you. Attached to the email were financial reports, screenshots of matching geolocations, meeting chronologies, and, most importantly, proof of the VK Consulting scheme's existence. Sent at 4:47 p.m. Just the right time for people to read before leaving their offices. The cursor hovered over the Send button. I heard footsteps below. Robert was coming up the stairs, likely to supervise my packing. I smiled and clicked the button. Robert walked into the guest bedroom, where I was supposedly gathering my things. In his hands he held my wedding suitcases, a gift from my mother-in-law, ugly as mortal sin but very expensive. "Helping you pack," he announced with a charitable look. "Order the moving truck for the day after tomorrow. I'll pay for it. After all, we lived together for 7 years. How generous, I thought. Quite the Rockefeller of our neighborhood. "Rob," I leaned against the doorframe, feigning exhaustion. "Could you explain what kind of valuable services you received from VK Consulting for $16,000? The effect exceeded my expectations. Robert froze with the suitcase in his hands, and I was ready to swear I heard the gears grinding in his head. It's a complex business consultation. You wouldn't understand anyway. You don't have a degree in finance." "Oh, right. I'm just a lawyer. What do I know about the high matters of financial consulting?" "Try to explain. Maybe I'll understand what exactly this company was consulting on." "Vlada works with a unique, comprehensive method. She links physical health, mental state, and financial success into a single system. And VK Consulting is Vlada Krasheninova," I clarified in an innocent voice. Silence was my only answer. Bingo. I went back to the bedroom, took my tablet, and laid out a beautiful chart I had drawn specifically for this occasion before my stunned husband. "Look at the interesting system your Vlada has. Monday, Pauline Drozdova, personal training and mental coaching. Tuesday and Thursday, Alice Yarborough, energy practices and unlocking female potential. Wednesday, Olivia Michaels, biohacking for executives. Friday, Ian Levitt, investments in health.
Weekends are for you, my dear, with your revolutionary method. Convenient schedule, isn't it? I showed him the geotags from social media, the calendar of meetings, and most importantly, a copy of the email that flew out to the other participants of this financial theater 15 minutes ago, sent at 4:47. They're reading it now, and I bet they're very surprised. From a tanned, handsome man, Robert turned into a pale shadow of himself. His jaw dropped, and primal terror was visible in his eyes. Shakespeare would have envied such acting. What have you done, you fool? I just shared useful information with people who have a right to know the truth. Isn't that what corporate ethics teaches us? Claire, you don't understand. This will ruin everything. She said you were special, the only one, that together you'd build an empire. You know, she said the same thing to Ian when she squeezed $25,000 out of him for a startup. As if to confirm my words, the phone rang. Pauline Drozdova herself. I turned on the speakerphone. Let Rob listen too. I received your email. Pauline's voice sounded like a prosecutor at a trial. I need explanations immediately. Of course, Pauline. I'm at your service. For the next 20 minutes, I dedicated myself to a detailed account of how VK Consulting operated. I showed documents via video call, commented on financial flows, and demonstrated the coincidence of dates and geolocations. Pauline listened in silence, occasionally asking clarifying questions. You could sense the professional immediately. Send me all the materials, every single document. I'm starting work immediately. No sooner had I said goodbye to Pauline than Alice Yarborough called. Unlike the restrained Pauline, Alice was furious. This is some kind of mistake or an attempt at blackmail. Who even are you? Claire Austin, wife of Robert Austin, one of Miss Krosheninikova's clients. Alice, check your bank statements. Look for transfers to VK Consulting. $9,000 over 7 months, if my data is correct. How do you... Alice's voice trailed off. Wait. I heard the rustle of papers, then a muffled curse. The lady had clearly found what she was looking for. Good heavens, $9,200. For what? For unlocking female potential and energy practices. By the way, VK Consulting doesn't legally exist. It's just a personal checking account registered to an individual. I'm coming to see you right now. No need. Let's all get on a call together. We also have Pauline, Olivia, and Ian. We need to coordinate our actions. By 7 o'clock in the evening, we had a conference call with 5 people. Olivia admitted she was paying for corporate wellness programs from the company budget, almost $15,000 in a year. Ian talked about the $25,000 invested in an innovative startup for creating next-generation supplements. The money, of course, didn't go to development, but to Vlada's personal accounts. She said the same phrases to each of you, I summarized. You are special. Only you understand me. Together, we will change the world. I made a comparison table. Everyone wanted to see it. The table had the effect of an exploding bomb. Identical compliments, identical promises, similar schemes for siphoning money. A professional con artist working according to a polished scheme. What do you suggest we do? Pauline asked after a long pause. Unite? Collective reports to the district attorney, the IRS, and the Federal Trade Commission. I have a plan of action, if you're interested. Everyone was interested. Very interested. While I was instructing my new allies, Robert sat in the corner of the bedroom trying to call Vlada. Judging by his increasingly desperate expression, he wasn't having any luck. The lady had clearly switched to subscriber unavailable mode. By 8 o'clock in the evening, we had created a private group chat called Victims of VK. Ian came up with the name. The man clearly had a talent for dark humor. Alice started taking screenshots of all of Vlada's posts in case the lady decided to scrub her social media. Olivia contacted her associates regarding the unlicensed sale of supplements. Pauline took charge of preparing the filings for law enforcement. Ian used his connections in the banking sector to track the money flows. I'm an idiot, Robert said, staring into space. A total idiot. It's called an epiphany, honey. I patted him on the shoulder. Better late than never. But she told me about the house. She said, what did she say exactly? That I could give her the house as a sign of our love, that it would be a symbol of a new beginning.
I burst out laughing. I honestly couldn't help myself. Robert looked at me as if I had grown a second head. What's so funny, Rob? Darling, did you ever once wonder why all the house documents are in my name? Why only my last name is on the deed? But we bought it while married. No, honey, I bought this house before our wedding, with the inheritance from my grandmother. It's my personal property, not subject to division in a divorce. You can't give away what doesn't belong to you. If looks could kill, I'd be lying there breathless, but it only amused me. At 8:30, a snow-white Land Cruiser pulled into the driveway. Our heroine finally deigned to show up. "Attention everyone in the chat," I texted. "Target has arrived. Start recording." Vlada got out of the car in a tight athletic suit that emphasized every curve of her toned figure. She took a suitcase and several boxes from the trunk. Apparently, she had decided to move in earlier than planned. A confident predator moving in to occupy conquered territory. I went downstairs and stood on the staircase so I could clearly see what was happening in the hallway. "Phone is recording. Everything is going according to plan, Robbie," Vlada exclaimed, throwing her arms around my husband's neck. "I missed you so much. I couldn't wait and came a day early. That's okay, right? Let's start planning the renovation. We'll knock this wall down. We'll make a yoga studio here." "Vlada, we need to talk," Robert started. "Later, honey, later. First, show me our bedroom. I brought scented candles and—" "Vlada Olegevna Krusheninnikova," I said loudly and clearly. The lady turned around. Sincere surprise was written on her face. Apparently, she expected me to have already moved out, crying and covered in ashes. "Oh, you're still here?" Steel notes appeared in her voice. "Robert, you said the ex had already left. I haven't gone anywhere, and I don't plan to." I descended a few more steps. "Furthermore, I have news for you. 4 hours ago, I sent a detailed email about your activities to Pauline Drozdova, Alice Yarborough, Olivia Michaels, and Ian Levitt. I believe those names are familiar to you." Vlada's face was a poem. First came confusion, then recognition, then panic, quickly replaced by poorly hidden rage. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled up my phone and turned on the speakerphone. "Pauline, are you there?" "Yes, Pauline Drozdova, family attorney." "Vlada, a report was filed with the district attorney an hour ago. Grand larceny and fraud." "Alice?" "Alice Yarborough here. A report to the IRS regarding undeclared income has been sent. By the way, Vlada, I took screenshots of all your social media posts just in case." "Olivia?" "Olivia Michaels. The health department is very interested in your innovative supplements without a license. An investigation starts next week." "Ian?" "Ian Levitt. The $25,000 you called an investment in a startup is still sitting in your personal accounts. That's easy to track. Bank secrecy doesn't apply in cases of fraud." Vlada stood in the middle of my hallway, and with every word, her face looked more like a mask of ancient tragedy. Robert pressed himself against the wall, looking like he wanted to sink through the floor. This is a conspiracy. You've plotted this out of jealousy." "We plotted this out of a sense of justice," I corrected. "Do you know how much you've squeezed out of all of us in total? More than $70,000. That carries a significant prison sentence. I provided services. I helped people." "What services?" Pauline chimed in. "Selling uncertified supplements? Fake consultations through a non-existent company? That's called fraud. And as a lawyer—" "Stop calling," Vlada shrieked. "And also," I continued, savoring the moment, "Robert mentioned you plan to move into this house, my house, which is in my name and was bought before the marriage. You didn't even bother to check the documents before making plans to knock down walls. Rob?" Vlada turned to my husband. "Tell them. Explain that this is a misunderstanding." "Leave, Vlada," Robert said hollowly. "Just leave. You promised. You said we'd be together, that I was the only one who understood you." "You said the exact same thing to me," Ian remarked over the phone. "Word for word. Do you have a script for these cases?" Vlada grabbed her suitcase and headed for the door. At the exit, she turned and looked at me viciously. "You'll regret this." "I doubt it." I waved at her. "All the best, and find a good lawyer. You're going to need one." The door slammed. The Land Cruiser roared and sped off into the night, leaving behind clouds of exhaust and my husband's shattered hopes. I looked at Robert. He stood leaning against the wall, looking like he had aged 10 years in the last hour. "You have 15 minutes to pack your things," I said calmly. "Go home. You don't live here anymore. All divorce matters go through the lawyers." "Claire, I'm sorry, 15 minutes, Robert. The clock is ticking." He slowly went upstairs. I heard him packing his things, hurriedly, sloppily, dropping things on the floor. After 20 minutes, he came down with 2 bags and a sack. "Can I pick up the rest later?" "Make a list. I'll send it with a courier." Keys on the table. He took out the keys and placed them on the console in the hallway. He stood there looking at me, opened his mouth to say something, but changed his mind. He walked out, quietly closing the door behind him. I was left alone in the big house. In my house. The phone vibrated. A message from my mother. "How are things with you, warrior? Victory on all fronts. The enemy has fled, dropping their banners. My smart girl. I'll come over tomorrow and we'll celebrate." The group chat was buzzing with life. Alice wrote that her husband had gone to his mother to rethink his behavior. Olivia was preparing for a serious talk, but she was determined. Pauline reported that she and her husband had decided to start family therapy. Ian was quiet at first,
but then wrote that his wife was in shock, but they would get through it. We all paid a price for this story, but we acted together and didn't let ourselves be stepped on. In the morning, Robert called. His voice was tired and broken. "Claire, I've been suspended from work. They say the scandal with Vlada hit the local news sites. I'm not mentioned by name, but everyone in the company knows. And what do you want from me? Maybe we could agree on something? Present it all as a misunderstanding?" "No, Robert, everyone is responsible for their own actions. You chose this path yourself. But I didn't know she was dating 5 people at once. Maybe, but you knew you were cheating on your wife. You knew you were spending family money on a mistress. You knew, and you did it anyway."
And now you're surprised by the consequences. He was silent for a moment, then quietly said goodbye and hung up. We never spoke directly again, only through attorneys. The following months were a blur of court proceedings. Pauline, as promised, coordinated our actions. The district attorney built a solid case. It turned out that Vlada had defrauded more than just us. 3 more victims were found in other states. The total amount of damages exceeded $125,000. The trial began in March. We all gave testimony, providing documents and evidence. Vlada tried to portray herself as a victim of circumstances, a misunderstood businesswoman being persecuted out of jealousy. But facts are stubborn things, especially when there are so many of them. In April, the sentence was handed down: grand larceny, tax evasion, and conducting illegal business. 6 years in a general security prison, plus an obligation to pay restitution to all victims. Although given her financial situation after her accounts were frozen, the payments will likely stretch over 20 years. We celebrated this event at a restaurant. Me, Pauline, Alice, Olivia, and Ian. What started as a group of cheated people turned into a real friendship. We survived this together and became each other's support system. "You know," Alice said, raising her glass, "I'm grateful to Claire. If it weren't for her, we would have kept paying that fraudster and living in a fantasy." "Even though shattering it was painful, it was necessary," Olivia added. "To the truth," Ian proposed a toast, "no matter how bitter it may be." We drank to the truth, to justice, and to finding each other in this crazy story. The divorce from Robert was finalized quickly. I kept the house, most of the marital assets, and a sense of moral satisfaction. Robert found a new job at a small firm, rents an apartment, and is trying to start over with a clean slate. A couple of times he sent letters with apologies, but I didn't even open them. That chapter is closed. Rumors about my case spread through the professional community. Fellow lawyers appreciated the skill of the investigation I conducted, and I started receiving offers to consult on similar cases and develop protection schemes against financial fraud in personal relationships. I even created a special course, How to Spot a Financial Scam in a Relationship. It's in high demand, unsurprisingly. My mother is immensely proud of me. She says I'm a worthy daughter of a forensic accountant, having managed to apply professional skills to my personal life. Now she and I run a joint blog on financial security. She handles the accounting perspective, and I handle the legal side. I meet with my combat group regularly. Once a month, it's a mandatory girls' night. Ian bravely endures the name. We discuss life, share news, and support each other. Since her divorce, Alice met a wonderful man, honest, open, without a Land Cruiser or secret bank accounts. Olivia and her husband went through family therapy and are closer than they were before the crisis. Pauline is writing a book about our story. She says it will be a bestseller. Ian and his wife made it through too. They even got a dog. He says it strengthens the family better than any therapy. Tonight I have dinner scheduled with a potential client. A lady suspects her husband is siphoning assets through shell companies. A familiar story, isn't it? I've studied the documents. Yes, the scheme is similar, but more sophisticated. It will be an interesting case. The house that Robert so easily tried to give to his mistress stands firm. My home is my fortress, my symbol of independence. Sometimes in the evenings, I go out on that very porch where the drama unfolded a year ago and drink coffee, watching the sunset. Mrs. Higgins still walks Barnaby the same as always. Seeing me, she waves and smiles. The Millers bought a second Mercedes. Apparently business is good. The teenagers grew out. Now they zoom around on mopeds instead of scooters. Life in Long Island goes on as usual. "Claire Austin," Mrs. Higgins called out to me yesterday. "How are you? I heard you're quite a celebrity in legal circles now." "Everything is fine, Mrs. Higgins. I'm working, living, and enjoying life." "Good for you. I was just telling my granddaughter about you. I said, learn from Claire, Mary.
Get a good education and a reliable profession so you don't have to depend on anyone. I smiled. Mrs. Higgins is a wise woman, telling her granddaughter the right things. Life taught me an important lesson. Trust, but verify. Love, but protect yourself legally. Be open, but not naive. And most importantly, always have a plan B. Preferably one that is notarized. I'm sitting in my kitchen now, finishing my third cup of coffee of the evening. My mother says it's bad for you, but what can you do? It's a professional habit. On the table are documents for a new case. On the laptop, a half-finished article about financial scams and marriage. Outside the window, it's a quiet New York evening. Somewhere a dog is barking. Cars hum on the main highway, and seagulls cry over the Great South Bay. The ordinary life of an ordinary elite neighborhood where various stories hide behind beautiful facades. My story had a happy ending. Yes, it was painful. Yes, I had to go through betrayal and disappointment. But I came out of this mess not as a broken victim, but as a winner. With my house, new friends, a reputation as a professional, and a clear understanding of what I am worth.